Guess the appropriate place to begin is Bill Russell, the death of Bill Russell at 88 years old.
Yeah.
I was taking a nap and I woke up and I get my phone and read it. Bill Russell has died at age 88. I'm like, I gasp immediately. And then I'm like, wow. Like, I just started thinking about Bill Russell and everything that he meant to the game of basketball, to what he meant as an athlete in the 1960s, the racism that he went through, the breaking barriers that the barriers that he broke, um, him represent him representing the country, him winning in college, him and Wilt Chamberlain. I started thinking about. I was like, man, like his main like kind of rival died in like 1999, and he's been kind of hanging around since. And you just look at Bill Russell, and he's just always there, and you never think Bill Russell's gonna die, even though he's very old, or he was very old. And I was sad, and we got at least like the Celtics got to the finals this year, and he was able to be on the home court. He gave out the trophy. He didn't give it to the Celtics, but he did get to appear out there. And it was just I've been listening to a lot of stuff about Bill Russell, about how great of a teammate he was. I started learning my Bill Russell history by books when I was like in fourth grade. Like no one had told me about it. I just kind of stumbled upon it one day. I was like, hold on, what? The Celtics won like how many titles in a row? And then I just started devouring any book I could find on NBA history and just everything he did. And I was like fascinated, but I was like, but he doesn't like score that much or anything. And then they were like, oh, he had 30 rebounds, and he's like a phenomenal athlete and a great defender. And this is
Initiate breaks.
yeah, the way he would defend and play defense and not block it out of bounds, great outlet passer, different stuff like that. And you know, you always like just hear about some of the stuff that he did as far as like running the basketball camps in Mississippi, and really like putting his neck out there for a lot of that stuff. And he was a legendary figure in the game that he was just everyone's like everyone looks up to Bill Russell. And I they said he had a nice like peaceful death. He was around family. Like they didn't disclose how he died. Kind of fitting. We didn't really know too much about Bill Russell outside of the game, except like Bill Russell don't take no shit. And I heard some interesting stories, and just think about the dynamic of being a black man in Boston, Massachusetts, which is it has a terrible history of racism, but there's also like a strong black community in Boston as well that I don't think.
A diverse community of black people in Boston too.
Yeah, and
Like the Caribbean influence there is heavy.
it's been like that is pretty much long as like the city's existed. And the cool thing that I heard about Bill Russell was he like ingratiated himself to that that populace. And like of course we know about some of the terrible stuff that he went through. Like they were shitting on his bed and spray
Yeah,
painting in
break
his
after
house.
the house break in. Yeah, yeah.
They were doing a lot of stuff. And Russell famously used to say, I played for the Celtics, I didn't play for Boston.
All the way around. He saw
Or
it as he. Or no. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. He's
like,
played for the Celtics, didn't play for Boston. You're right.
yeah. And
He famously told that to Kyrie Irving.
yeah. And it's like the decades of like mentoring different NBA players. I don't like, I look at Bill Russell and it's just like, that's the ultimate winner. When I think about if there was a player like Bill Russell now, right, and they won the title 11 out of 13 times, he was this defensive force. And just you know it's like double Tim Duncan's career, like like and more. So it's quite crazy. But what are your like thoughts on Bill Russell?
He's somebody that when you're a person like me that is very much into like making sense out of things from your opinion, and then like being willing to reconsider things based off of numbers you see, because I believe that like everybody has their biases or whatever else, and like if something's telling you if something is correlated to greatness or something is correlated towards winning and like something's out of whack with whatever you see, it might be worth reconsidering whatever whatever you're seeing, right? So like I would look and see like these Bill Russell's rebounding numbers or the Wilt Chamberlain rebounding numbers. I'm like, what is this? I don't understand, right? The Nate Thurman rebound numbers, well, like what, huh? How does it make any sense? Not knowing what the game, how the game was played, and it was just breakneck and just throwing slop up at the rim, and everybody shooting in the 30s and 40 percentile in or percentages, and like, so when I would see like the Wilt Chamberlain stats, and then in comparison to the Bill Russell stats, and then would see like what you would see as far as wins and losses versus the scoring ability and everything else, and then hearing people's accounts of both, I'd always think, oh, these people are like too far inside the forest to see the actual trees. And that's stuff like that kind of happens still to this day. I remember in Bill Simmons' book of basketball that we both have read over a few times, like Chuck Klosterman wrote the Wilt Chamberlain part, and after like I think an earlier chapter in the book where like Bill Simmons will annoyingly try to convince you or have this argument about you that Bill Russell was a better basketball player than Wilt Chamberlain. And then by citing like stuff like, oh well, one person stood up for the players union, the other one didn't. It was like, well, I thought we were talking about basketball, but whatever. Chuck Klosterman wrote the piece for Wilt Chamberlain because Bill Simmons was too disgusted with Wilt Chamberlain to write up about him apparently, and like the I think the kind of like the dismount on that part from Klosterman or Chuck Klosterman was like Wilt Chamberlain could have been anything, and Bill Russell almost certainly could not have. Like he could have been Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, or Bill Russell could never have been Wilt Chamberlain on the basketball court. And while that is true, over the years, because of things that don't involve what their playing days were, you just hear all the glowing respect that every contemporary from the 60s, and like the later greats from the generations after have for Bill Russell, and hearing stories about like how, in the 84 finals, Magic Johnson dribbles the clock out, and then he's just basically like fucking inconsolable for days at a time. And Isaiah Thomas is like with him, and he's like he was in a bad shape, and then all of a sudden he gets a phone call, and Cookie says you need to take it, and then Magic's like I just can't, and then Cookie says it's Bill Russell, and Bill Russell says like, hey man, like bad shit's gonna happen on the basketball court, you got to shake this shit off and not let this haunt you. And like you hear all these sorts of stories about Bill Russell doing this for guys younger than him. Like you also hear about like the Kareem relationship too, and it's like, and then when they both go to that meeting with Jim Brown and and everything, it's like he was there and helped so many people in the generation after him and gave them words of encouragement and things to try to find an edge or make peace. Like I think probably for me, my favorite Bill Russell moment, aside from any time he laughed, because he had like the most infectious, funniest fucking laugh ever. Like it's just this big, guffawing, like it's what you imagine would be like if you were going to make a black family movie and you wanted to have a funny ass granddad who had a laugh that made the whole entire theater like slap their knee. That's what Bill Russell's laugh sounded like. Like you type in Bill Russell laughing into your phone, your computer, your laptop, desktop, whatever, and find something on YouTube or whatever video else you can find it and play it. And all you need is like 3 seconds. You'll know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. But I remember him like once KG became a Celtic, they did this sit down interview where like they're just sitting there, two legends sitting there talking. And at this point, KG's 31,
At
31,
least, yeah.
yeah, 31. You know, only really ever had one good team. Made one conference finals, won an MVP. Was probably better than his MVP year the year before, but he was on an awful team. And like he's talking about like Bill Russell explaining to him like, you know, it's more like they're both kind of, I don't know if it's filling each other out because they've made each other all-star ceremonies on and stuff, so they know each other, they have a rapport, but it's more like I want to it's kind of like KG, like, you know, and KG has this big gregarious fuck you, I'll ask you and say anything to you type of attitude, but also realizing like I also respect my elders. It's really weird with him, like, but he's also like I want to ask him some stuff, but I don't know if I should ask him. But Bill Russell just like ask away, but you kind of see like the veil drop over time over this edited interview or whatever else. But Bill Russell was just like, it was more like he was gonna ask him like, how should I lead this team when there's another star? Like I'm cutting the shit and kind of getting to the point of what KG was asking, like, how do I, you know, entertain Paul Pierce and Ray Allen and even the younger guys like a Perk in a you know, Tony Allen and a Rondo. Now that I'm on this team that I've only known how to like lead people where like I'm clearly the best player, as opposed to like, you know, in certain situations it might be better for Ray Allen to take the last shot or Paul Pierce, or if he needs to get a bucket or whatever else, like that sort of thing. Like he's trying to figure out like in his mind, like, because you know KG was never really a selfish guy. You kind of got to make him at times say go out there and go get buckets if need be. Like, but so it's kind of like him and Bill Russell put together kind of makes sense because like Bill Russell made a whole career out of not being a table setter, a table setter, as opposed to someone that you just gotta, you know, go out there and go get 35 or whatever else. So he was talking about like, you know, you'll feel it at time comes time, you'll need to, you know, put the hammer down, all this stuff. And he talked about how like he always admired him over KG over his whole career and all this kind of stuff. And he said like, you know, if you do the right things, whatever else, the titles will come. One title came, but you know, bad luck. And then at the end of it, and then like the end of it, part of it is like, it's kind of like, he's like, you know, I watch you, you know, given all this responsibility to carry a franchise, and the franchise not necessarily do right with you via management, like the Joe Smith stupid thing. And he was like, you know, I felt like you've always walked the right path, and like even if y'all don't, you know, succeed or make it or whatever else, he was like, he is saying like, I will give you one of my rings because you have earned this, even though you haven't gotten it yet. You have done everything, and I'm just sitting there like, wow, that's high praise, right? That's high praise,
Yeah.
From, you know, and you know, KG's one of the dudes like, I like Iverson, left it on the floor. There ain't never been no time where KG didn't give you give you everything he ever had. So like for me, like I was in my feels like how much I love hearing that, because KG's one of my favorite basketball players of all time. And then like the dismount was, I forgot what the dismount was, but he ended it and he gave that fucking laugh, and he was like, "But you ain't got to worry about that because you know, because y'all gonna win, so I ain't gonna have to give you one of my rings." He started busting out laughing, and KG's like, you see how this motherfucker is? Like he gave that look at the camera, like, you see how he is? He'll give you some real game, and then he always laugh it off, and like that was like the big gregarious, like huge laugh and smile and everything, and like seeing him over these years or whatever. So I remember you were, you know, we were talking about the 75 team, and I was like, yeah, man, like they gotta do 75 teams. We don't know how many more of these we got with Bill Russell.
Mm-hmm.
Like any chance you get to squeeze out, get an appearance with Bill Russell for the history of the game or his history of like give him to drop whatever knowledge or, you know, insight to have a actual civil rights like icon, a leader in the civil rights movement, an icon, be, you know, not necessarily leader, but icon, like be there for the guys. Like that's a big deal. So, you know, I'm glad that, you know, all these people have all these moments, you know, the moments that he's had with Kobe, the moments he's had with, you know, people like Jerry West or Shaq, or like I remember, I think it was in the last year or two, you know, in the last few years he started walking with a cane,
Mhm.
and I believe it was the Obama administration that gave him the Congressional Medal of Freedom and all that kind of stuff. To actually document how much of an American hero this dude actually was. And like I think in the last couple of years he did one last appearance at some award show or some, maybe it was an MVP thing
Yeah,
that they did,
yeah.
and he's like, they had Shaq up there, Mutombo and Kareem up there, and like it's his time to talk to the mic, and he looks off to the side and he points them all out. It's like five, all-time great centers, and he points them all five, one by one, all five, and you hit off camera. Like, he's trying to be funny because he knows the mic can pick it up, but he's like, he goes and he whispers, he puts a hand over his face, he goes like this: "I'll kick all y'all asses." Like, this shit was like, Bill Russell was fucking hilarious, and he knew he was hilarious. He realized he was like the funny granddad. He did at the end or whatever. I was like, and I can't give you much on his playing career at the time because obviously that was the '60s. I was born in '87, but like, all the stuff you hear about him going through, all my contemporary legends or all the people I grew up watching over the years, all have nothing but glowing things to say about this guy and the guidance they've given him and the guidance he's given to other people in the league and everything. And like, I love him for that because we both love basketball. Like, this dude was an all-time great ambassador for the sport. So yeah. I was really sad to hear the news about his passing, and just like you, like, I never thought he was ever going to go. Yeah. I never really ever considered it. It's like, kind of like in the Michael Jackson. It's like, I never really going to think about the day that Michael Jackson died. It's like, oh shit, he died.
Yeah, like, God damn.
Huh. Like, I'm still processing. I don't even know. Like, this is way totally different than the Kobe thing, where like the Kobe thing happened. I was just like, I need to be away from everything. I haven't watched any bit of any Kobe like tribute or homage thing because like it's just too emotional for me, right? Like, it had me crying on fucking recorded audio about this about the Kobe shit. The Bill Russell thing is like, I'm still processing it, and it's strange to think of it in that way. It's like almost like the Ali stuff, where it's like, wow, Muhammad Ali's dead.
Right, right.
It's just really strange to even think about.
If you guys want to pick up the essence of Bill Russell, it's my favorite moment of his youth. Pretty much, it's after Game 7 of the 1969 NBA Finals. Plays the Lakers. Wilt doesn't go back in the game. Either quits on the sideline, whoever you want to believe, doesn't go back in. The Celtics win the 11th title in 13 years on the Lakers' home court in the Forum. The balloons never come down. They get him in the locker room, and he's like an older looking version of himself. You see the young Bill Russell, he's all skinny, and then towards the end, he's got the big goatee and the little mini fro, kind of. And then he's got the Gap 2 smile, and the announcers ask him, how does it feel? And he can't even put it into words, and he just gets the big smile. He's like breaking into tears, and immediately, like, just watching that, I'm like, imagine like the road that he traveled in. This was the end for him. He never played again. And it was like, and it was to the point where he couldn't even talk about it. And at that point, you would think after your 11th championship, you probably talk all the shit in the world, right? Look at the Warriors and how they acted after this season when they won their 4th title. Imagine winning your 11th. Like, he couldn't even.
The generations are different. They handle things different.
True. But like, just seeing him kind of break down like that, it brings you into the human element of all this, and what people really sacrifice and put it on the line for. And it check that out. It's on YouTube somewhere. But
you know what else is also on YouTube?
What?
The second half, or at least it was the second half of that Game 7. And I got to tell you, like, you got people dismiss Larry Bird and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure there are people that was out here dismissing Jerry West. Jerry West was out here busting their ass trying to keep that team afloat as Wilt was out of that game. He was sensational in that second half. I watched that second half one time, and it was like, I really can't believe they're not letting Wilt back in this game. That's weird. But yeah.
So speaking of West, it's like you think of the patriarchs of the league now. It's like Jerry West and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
And I think Oscar. I think the Big O's still around.
He's still around, but he's he doesn't have the kind of fanfare that Kareem
Yeah.
and Jerry West do. And that's for a bunch of different reasons. A lot of it has to do with the part where like he was very hard on teammates, and he also is very mad about the kind of bullshit he's had to deal with throughout his whole entire life. So that's you know um I think the last I heard about Will was when he was talking about like, here we go. I shouldn't have brought it up. The shit when he's talking about like Steph Curry, all you gotta do is just get up on him, which is like fucking preposterous. And Rich, anytime there's like the slightest bit of, because like the variance you get from shooting from that distance, you're going to have a stinker here and there, right? And that's the Steph Curry thing. Like people will see Steph Curry drop 38 points or whatever else, and then they'll see him have like a 17-point game, and heart more on the 17-point game than 38, even though like that shit, and even though by the end of every series is like 26, 20 whatever points a game, he's had a perfectly fine series, just one stinker, and like every single time like that one stinker happens, Richard come out here and be like, see, all you gotta do is just get up on him. Like just like Oscar says, and every fucking time I'm like, bro, will you stop? You see where this man is shooting from the parking lot. Give this man some slack. He's not supposed to be able to shoot that like that every fucking game. But 2016 finals, Richard running off with that one. So heavy.
Bro. Yeah. But rest in peace to Mr. Russell, and yeah,